So I am extremely happy to join the Australian National Day of Compassion 2023 that is dedicated to exploring deep wisdom. So I'll be saying a few words based, of course, on the Buddhist tradition and also on the general ideas that has been developed by mankind the best I can. So, how to first define maybe what we mean in Buddhism by wisdom. Of course, in ordinary sense, it means to be wise, to have discernment, and not to be distorting the way things are through our projection, sort of a prioris, préjugés, and so forth. In Buddhism, it goes a little bit further. Wisdom is to bridge the gap between appearances and reality. In appearance, sometimes we think that things are permanent, they exist from their own side, they have inherent, autonomous, independent existence. And we take them as solid and truly existing in the way we perceive them. In fact, if we correctly analyze this, we see that everything is changing every moment. Nothing, even at the most subtle macroscopic level of particles or quantum events, nothing remains exactly the same 2 consecutive instants. Also, nothing exists just on its own, being its own cause, unchanging. Everything exists through relation. Everything happens through the coming together of a numberless causes and conditions that crystallize some aspects of reality when they interact with our consciousness. So the investigation of outer reality, of phenomena, to show their true nature as being interdependent, transient, and as well as the investigation of the nature of mind, what is behind the screen of thoughts, that pure awareness that is always there, that is the most basic aspect of our consciousness, which is we can compare with light, for instance. When we shine a torchlight on a heap of garbage, it doesn't become dirty. When we shine on a heap of gold, it doesn't become expensive. Pure consciousness, the basic faculty to know, is not modified by what it knows, by what it helps to bring to our conscious mind. So what allows reasoning, emotions, recollections, wondering about the future, all our mental life is what is the constructions that happen in our mental landscape within the frame of pure awareness. So to recognize that for Buddhism is part of wisdom. To recognize also that what we call the self is not, as Descartes was thinking, a kind of unitary, autonomous, permanent entity, but it's a dynamic stream of experience. Yes, we have a person that is the history of that stream. Yes, when we wake up, I am there, that's fine. But if we impute on top of that some kind of independent entity, like the self, the ego, whatever we call it, that mental construct is not just a philosophical idea without much consequences. Because if we think there is a central core, this independent individual self, then we want to protect it. We want to please it. So the whole world becomes either an instrument to further our aspirations, or wants, or needs, or interests, or a threat. So we polarize immensely the world. Then attraction, repulsion comes in, and they further develop into animosity, compulsive desire, lack of discernment, envy, jealousy, pride, arrogance, all what we call mental toxins. Why? because those afflictive mental states create unhappiness or suffering for others and for ourselves. No, hatred has never benefited anyone in this world ever in history. So to recognize that our stream of consciousness is a dynamic stream, constantly changing, is to be more attuned to reality, and that is what we call wisdom. Then there is what we call the relative truth of wisdom. That is all the law of cause and effect that operates in the outer world. And the ultimate truth, which is about the ultimate nature of things, which appear, yet are devoid of solid intrinsic existence. So now, how those concepts relate with compassion? Well, if we have a hyper-individualistic perception of ourselves and others, then we have this tendency to just, give ultimate priority to one's own interest. And it's not that if we think we are independent entities, we may say, well, I have nothing against others' well-being, but it's not my job. I can build up my happiness within the bubble of self-centeredness. But that doesn't work for two reasons. First, me all day long makes everyone miserable, yourself and others. It feels very stuffy in the bubble of exacerbated sense of self-importance, the bubble of the ego. It's not a good place to be. That's number one. Number two is against reality, because we are interdependent. We are not like snooker balls that sometimes eat each other and exist independently and sometimes interact, sometimes not. We only exist in terms of relations. Therefore, to assume that we could build our happiness in our little bubble is bound to fail. Now, if you think of realizing interdependence of all sentient beings, that is the very foundation of compassion. And that's it's also attuned to reality. Why? Because if I look within myself, I don't wake up in the morning thinking, may I suffer the whole day and if possible, my whole life. Somehow, even we think that happiness is hard to reach, maybe I'm not made for happiness, but deep within, if there was a possibility of being happy, we'd rather choose that than suffer endlessly, isn't it? So once we recognize that, we accept that fact, and my dear friend Paul Gilbert teaching and therapy on self-compassion helps you to identify the way to be sort of gentle and good with oneself. And what is better way to be good with yourself than trying to say, okay, if at all possible, I'd rather be happy. Therefore, we become concerned what would lead to well-being and what goes against well-being. So we start to distinguish not only just moral grounds, but what will bring suffering for sure, like jealousy, hatred. No, definitely it will bring suffering. And what may contribute to well-being. And there we see that loving kindness, altruistic love, compassion will definitely contribute to our well-being. That's in fact, in positive psychology, it has been called love in the terms of altruistic love, has been called by, for instance, by Barbara Fredrickson as the supreme emotion, because it's the emotion that brings along with it the greatest number of other positive mental factors. It's like openness and all kinds of appreciation of others and all kinds of similar things. So in fact, as much as the pursuit of selfish happiness is bound to fail, and the French writer Romain Rolland said, if the pursuit of selfish happiness is the only goal of your life will soon be goalless. So it is lose-lose situation. You make others unhappy, you make yourself unhappy. While compassion is a win-win situation, altruistic love, compassion, kindness, because it's the best way, the best mental state to be in, at the same time, of course, it will be appreciated by others. That's what we hope. So in a way, wisdom and compassion, we say in the Buddhist teaching, are the two wings of a bird. And that bird can fly towards enlightenment, toward awakening, toward inner freedom. Now, a bird has two wings. Now, the bird is not starting by training one wing first, and then later a second one. He has to train both wings. Then he can take flight and reach far away. So we need to train or cultivate or become more familiar with compassion and wisdom simultaneously. That's the only way that they can both grow. So that's one thing. Now, let's explore a little bit more the concept of compassion. In Buddhist way, we speak of 4 measureless ideas or attitude. Measureless because their object is measureless or infinite number of sentient beings, and because their benefit is also infinite and measureless, if we can cultivate them and bring them to their ultimate point. So first we begin by benevolence, loving kindness, altruistic love. That should be the general sphere within which we do everything. We should start with the motivation. It is defined precisely as the wish and the determination to do anything that can bring happiness to others and the causes of happiness. So that's loving kindness. Now, what is compassion? When altruistic love, which is to wish the happiness and the cause of happiness for others, encounters suffering. Of course, there's a lot of suffering in this world of all kinds, being parted from dear ones, confronted with enemies, old age, sickness, death. Nevertheless, we are not all suffering at all times. So compassion is the way altruistic love transforms, or what altruistic love becomes when it is confronted with suffering. It becomes the wish, may all sentient beings, without exception, be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. So basically, it is benevolence or altruism or kindness, whatever you call it, confronted with suffering. So there's also should be connected with celebration or rejoicing in others' qualities, achievement, what they do for others, what they have achieved for themselves. And all these three, altruistic love, compassion, celebrating or rejoicing, should be impartial. It cannot just be, for those who treat us well or those who are close to us, because that would be a very sort of narrow, inefficient, actually, altruism and compassion. Altruism and compassion should be boundless, like the sun that shines on everything on earth, good and bad people, beautiful places and not so beautiful places. The sun doesn't choose to shine only on a few privileged ones. And in fact, we may argue, of course, that in life, we cannot just possibly wake up in the morning and think that we are going to remove all the suffering in the world. We have to care for those who are close to us, dear to us, the vulnerable person, our children, our aged parents, friends, companions, partners, and so forth. But yes, of course, because they are in our life close to us, and we need to do so. At the same time, that should not prevent us from extending compassion to all. So if we keep the example of the sun, you see, their life is such that there are few people in life that are closer to that sun of our love and compassion. So they naturally get more light, more warmth, but it's not at the cost of excluding others. And in fact, if the sun would narrow its rays to just shine on these few elected people, it will give less warmth, less light, not only to everyone, but to those very people that we want to care for. So let the sun shine on everyone, which means let's not exclude anyone from one's heart. And then those who are close to us, they will get naturally more of this love and compassion. So, of course, we may argue, but what about bloody dictators? And we have a few cases, unfortunately, these days. So should we also extend our love and compassion? Yes, but in which way? Not by sort of wishing them to succeed in their nefarious endeavors or say, okay, let's send him for a holiday in the Bahamas that will get better. Not at all. It is not at all ignoring the dreadful activities and the harm, immense harm they do to others. It is not forgetting the victims to feel compassion for the perpetrator. In that case, compassion for a bloody dictator is like the attitude of a skillful physician who is dealing with a dangerously mad person. First, that physician will somehow prevent that person from harming others and harming himself or herself. So maybe he has to tie it on the chair or something. Then what is the next question the physician will ask? Not banging that person on the head and explode his brains, but is any way I can cure that person? So that's compassion for a bloody dictator. We may certainly wish, may the indifference, the cruelty, the greed, the psychopathic tendencies of that person somehow be uprooted. May all the environment, the culture that has brought up that person to this position may change in the short time, in the long time, so that we can make such a wish. So compassion is to remedy suffering wherever it is and whatever shape it takes. It's slightly different from moral judgment. We can make moral judgment, of course, about a bloody dictator, but it should be included in that wish, may all the causes of suffering be dispelled. So that's in a way a part of deep wisdom. So now in the end, when we speak of deep wisdom, from Buddhist perspective, it goes quite far. It is to recognize the ultimate nature of reality. Only in that way wisdom can be said to be deep. And that's, according to Buddhist teaching, the inseparable union of appearances, all phenomena, and emptiness. By emptiness is by no way a nihilistic attitude. It's simply that phenomena don't exist intrinsically, solidly, permanently, autonomously. So from that emptiness, everything can manifest because it's not stuck in that solidity. So infinite unfolding of phenomena. Yet, as they unfold, they don't have a autonomous existence. So that union of appearances and empty of inherent existence is for Buddhism the ultimate wisdom. And naturally, it translates and manifests as compassion. You see, when the sun of wisdom is shining, the first rays are bound to be love, compassion, not hatred, jealousy, arrogance. Those are peripheral result of endless mental construct, rumination of the past. Why me? Why not me? Why did that to me? Why not? So forth, this and that. The wounded egos and so forth. So that's not the heart essence of our mind, which is wisdom and compassion. It is those endless mental constructs that are the clouds at the periphery, or which mask the cloud that masks the blue sky and the shining sun that is always behind the cloud. But we may be for a long time in a state where the clouds are obscuring that. So wisdom is to dispel the clouds of ignorance and to develop unconditional love and compassion to all sentient beings without exceptions. So just a few words from a crazy monk, and wishing you a wonderful meeting. And I just regret that I'm not with you in person. So all the best, and take good care of yourself and good care of others. Thank you.